80-90% of motorists are trying at least to drive within the law. You know, and if you actually stop and see, most drivers do that. So we have basically a population, at least drivers, that actually try to obey the law. But what will generally upset them is when somebody breaks the law. And unfortunately in Sri Lanka, you will observe that there are more followers of bad practice than there are of good practice. And probably this is a trend that we see, and you see it in the road. So you only need to have one vehicle that is disobeying the law to find a whole queue of people following them. So I think, and very often at the head of the queue will be a very expensive vehicle, often with a backup vehicle. So one is to assume that these are people who actually make the law in this country, who take the lead in breaking the very laws that they make. And I think unless that is changed, it's no point blaming the three-wheeler drivers, the lesser people on the road, the people who drive for a living, to whom getting ahead of the next vehicle is more money to keep such in place. So I think this subculture on our roads of having very powerful vehicles, very often vehicles that are brought in duty-free to our country, are they actually required? When we have 3,000, 4,000 plus cc vehicles to travel on our roads, where the speed limit is even on the expressway it's 100. Right? I mean, with a 1,500 cc vehicle, you can easily, travel within that. They pollute the atmosphere. They guzzle more fuel, right? And they take that much more road space. They are much more, they may provide more protection to the user, but they are much more dangerous to a non-user. All of these things, should we be freely allowing large vehicles that actually bulldoze other vehicles, smaller vehicles? Yeah, I mean, you have to take into account the fact that 50% of our fleet are motorcycles, very vulnerable. Another 15% are three-wheelers, equally vulnerable. Then add to that bicycles and the smaller cars, So I think we need to see, a powerful vehicle with a powerful person, unfortunately leads to breaking the law most times. So I actually have tremendous respect for people who drive such vehicles but obey the law. But sadly, you see quite a lot of them seem to combine that power, or that is in fact probably an expression of that, to go in for vehicles like that. So I think that also needs to be addressed by the public. I don't know what one can do, but certainly it is a symptom of society and law and order, as Mr. Abhinavardhan said. So that's with respect to the culture, what I call the subculture, that is their intercooler subculture or whatever you may call it. With respect to all these problems of merging lanes and traffic lights and so on, Mr. Abhinavardhan, I served long years on what was called the traffic committee of the municipality. I think it is constituted by ordinance, municipal ordinance, that there has to be a traffic committee. And all these things, if you write to the municipal commissioner, they are sent there. And I remember many such instances where people made complaints about pedestrian crossing signal lights, parking, difficult turns and all of that, were dealt with to the best of the knowledge by that committee. I am not sure whether that committee is functioning now. I think it is constituted for the benefit of the citizens. And I believe the municipality is still legally in charge of all the roads. I'm not sure whether that is the way it happens now. So there are legally instituted systems which protect the law and the citizen. So whether those mechanisms are functioning now, I really don't know. Management of roads and so on, you asked about the economic loss and so on. See, most cities have traffic problems, and most cities people would complain about traffic. So in that sense, it's not unusual. But I think what we need to be mindful of is what are we doing about it, right? And what does the future hold for us? Are we at least doing something where tomorrow will be better than today? If you look at numbers, we have actually increasingly more vehicles coming into the city and not necessarily more people. Okay? So from 1985 to 2013, I have statistics, and over this period the number of people who have come into the city has increased by about 20%. But over this same period, the number of vehicles coming in have increased by about 100%. So what we are seeing is that people are moving from public transport to private transport. Now that is a symptom of prosperity, let's say, right? That is to be expected. So what we have to do is actually to improve public transport so that people have an option. And this is what most cities are doing. Singapore did this in the 1970s. That was led by a politician, Sri Lankans, took that decision to improve public transport, in fact to discourage private vehicles. Today in Singapore, traffic flows even at peak hour, I don't know, 20-30 kilometers an hour. Right? If you don't like that, you can take the public transport, which is still one of the best in the world, definitely one of the best in the region. Then we had places like London, I think it was Livingstone, right, again the mayor, who brought in congestion pricing. He brought in the red routes, right, banned parking, improved public transport, right, and that is, they turned the bend, the corner in terms of congestion. Now we have a whole heap of cities in South America that are bringing in high quality public transport, light rapid transit systems that run on the road. They take road space away and put high quality public transport, bus rapid transit systems, bus priority measures. And in fact in Bogota, the mayor, Enrique Peñalosa, was actually, the business community tried to impeach him because they thought they were going to, he was going to take away the freedom of driving to the city. And few people would come to the city and the business potential would diminish. But actually what happened was the reverse. Because lesser vehicles came, there was more time, more space for people to hang around in the city. The sidewalks were larger, people spent more time, they visited shops more often, and actually businesses increased. More people were able to come to the city and stay in. So we need to have radical thinking about tackling congestion. And the cities that have gone in the opposite direction, say for example many cities in East Asia, take from Bangkok to Kuala Lumpur or Jakarta or Manila, they all try to increase the road widths, build expressways one on top of the other, and now today they are having to reverse all of that by going in for public transport. Now one classic example that I've been quoting lately is Jakarta. Jakarta did not have a very good public transport system. So people very quickly, as soon as they could afford motorcycles, went on to motorcycles. They never went back to public transport. Then when they had a little more money, they went for cars. Then the roads got filled up and they couldn't go anywhere in their cars. So they kept the cars at home and bought motorcycles again so that they could creep through the cars, cut through the alleys and go there. Right? Now the city is planning to have improved public transport system. Okay. So that's a city that has gone the whole heat. And Bangkok went in for elevated expressways. Now they're gone in for train systems. So those are the ones I call that missed the boat in the 1970s, 80s. When Hong Kong and Singapore went in one direction, they went in the other. And today they are having to do that, redo it 20, 30 years. So Sri Lanka is in a critical stage. And we need to decide now whether we are going to, keep on experimenting with different forms of traffic management and try to get in as many vehicles as we can. Or whether we actually communicate to the people, high quality public transport, not what you see on the road now, is the answer. And people should be, it's almost a different way of thinking, And in all these countries, it is the politicians that actually took the lead, because they are best able to communicate this truth to the people. When professionals like us, even though we may say what is factually correct, they rather hear that from a politician. So I think these are some of the things that, political leaders must take up what is good for the people and then implement it. So I think overall the general frustration that is there, we are incurring, in my estimation, in the metro area in Colombo, at least 40 billion rupees annually, just in terms of wasted fuel and wasted time when speeds drop below 30 kilometers an hour. Speeds drop below 30 kilometers an hour. If we can travel at 30 kilometers an hour, I think for a city our size, that is reasonable. I don't think we should be thinking of traveling at 50, 60 on average. Because that is, if you travel 15 kilometers to work, that is a 30-minute journey. And I don't think we should think of greater luxuries in city. So that's a loss. Now, that is a loss that everything that is produced in the city must bear. And in my estimation, that works out to about 3%. So it's like having a 3% tax. You're paying for it. Because the public transport is bad, the company buys a vehicle. And that's about 100,000 rupees on top of the salary. So all of that, you're fine because your competitor company also is doing the same. But overall, our competitiveness of the goods we produce, particularly if we are thinking of exports, suffers. And I think this is partly the reason why our exports are becoming less and less. They're not becoming more and more competitive. If our electricity prices are high, if our taxes are high, if our transport cost is also high, where is it that we have the advantage to compete? So we must have some advantages somewhere in order to get our competitive edge. So I think this is one area where if we have a good transport system, we can reduce cost. We can reduce the transport cost of our corporate citizens, not only our individual citizens, and thereby increase the productivity of the city. Now, increasing, we are becoming commercially led or an economy that is producing commercial activity rather than agriculture. And these are found mostly in cities. So we need to have extremely efficient cities. And one of the most important aspects of an efficient city is its transport.